I'm Rick Archer. I'm a retired Thornton Police Department detective. I would never introduce myself that way. I'd introduce myself, hi, I'm Rick. Anyway, I was in college at Indiana State University, and I had full intent on going to law school. Just was not the lid to fit my pot. So, like, I've got this great education. What do I do with it? I guess I'll become a police officer. I hit my stride when I was moved into detectives. I got to use more brain power and ultimately was named as the lead homicide investigator. I was sound asleep, enjoying the rest, which I rarely got. Then I just got a call from patrol sergeant. There's not a lot of times you end up with a shooting victim on the front lawn of the Thornton Police Department. So just the circumstances were really unique.
Detective Rick Archer is summoned to handle a crime scene at his own police department. Somewhat odd. We don't provide curb service, but sometimes we have to.
So I get over there and I take a look around the scene. And there it is. A gold Cadillac in the front lawn of the Thornton Police Department. Driver's side door and passenger side door open. There was blood throughout the interior.
Archer looks more closely at the car, sees bullet holes in the driver's door, and sees a bullet hole in the seat.
There was also evidence of somebody having been drugged from the passenger side into the street. And they're telling me that there's a possibly abducted woman as part of this. And your mind just races trying to figure out, okay, what resources am I going to need?
The only person that knows details is in a Denver hospital. The EMTs are not confident that this woman's going to survive.
From that point, I send a team of 2 detectives to the hospital so that if Jackie's able to provide any statements pre-surgery, we have somebody there to get them.
Some people have a very strong will to live, and that's obviously the case with this girl. She has suffered 3 gunshot wounds, but she's with us. And she is conscious.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Can you state your full name for me, please?
Jackie Criazo.
Jackie, can you tell me about the events which occurred yesterday?
I had left my apartment at 5:30 in the morning, was heading to my dad's house. I was going eastbound on I-76, and as I made the turn coming along, I saw emergency flashes going and all that.
And she thinks maybe they need some assistance of some kind, and she pulls over behind the car and stops.
It was a small blue Geo Metro.
And all of a sudden, a girl, not wearing a top, runs to her car, jerks the door open.
She jumped in the car. She was screaming that he had been raping her and she needed to get the heck out of there.
And so Jackie took off.
What was her attitude like?
She was hysterical.
The girl told her her name was Rhonda Maloney. She got off work and she was driving back home when she got rear-ended by a car. It just bumped her. So she stopped to see what the damage was. And when she got out of the car, she was immediately attacked.
She said that he had raped her for 2 hours, and she said she didn't know who he was or where he'd come from. So I went through the intersection and knew I could go to the police station at 92nd.
So now they've driven only a short distance. The car the girl got out of begins to immediately chase them.
He sped up and tried to get alongside of me. At that time, he just started rapid fire.
The driver of the car continued firing on them all the way up the highway.
Jackie feels herself get hit with a bullet, multiple gunshot wounds, but she continues to drive. She's determined to reach the police.
At some point, she realized that her legs weren't working.
And that's when I lost control of my vehicle, and I tried to turn it into where I was headed.
And ended up coming to rest on the lawn of the Thornton Police Department.
That's normally when a criminal goes the other way. Not this guy. He's not done yet. This guy looks directly at her, points the gun at her face.
And he screamed at me that I should keep my mouth shut or else he was going to kill me.
Rhonda was curled up in a ball on the passenger side. The fellow pulled Rhonda out, saying something like, "You thought you were going to get away."
She was screaming that she couldn't see and that she was in all kinds of pain.
He drags the screaming woman back to his car and they drive off.
I got the impression it was his intention that she was going to die.
Good God, who are we dealing with here? Is this Jack the Ripper?
When he leaned over in the car, that was the best look I got at him.
He was described as a younger, light-skinned, moon-faced black male.
She says his face is burned into my mind. She's a very good witness.
What kind of car was he driving?
A Saturn, a late model Saturn.
The reason that was unique to us was just there weren't a lot of Saturns out. I don't think most people even knew what a Saturn was in those days. So at that point in time, the immediate thing is to find Rhonda.
Anytime a kidnapping has occurred, the urgency is absolutely extreme. The only way for a kidnapping to end and for a criminal to ensure his escape is to kill the victim.
Our focus was trying to find that Saturn. We had already requested assistance from the Air National Guard to come out with helicopters and do anything they could for us.
They do a search of the area and they find nothing.
Jackie had told us where Rhonda's car was, and we went down there.
Rhonda's vehicle was a small blue Geo, and it had some minor damage on it.
There's a fresh dent in the rear of Rhonda Maloney's car.
There was some footprints, there were some tire tracks. We had nothing else.
Archer is thinking about this case now as the pursuit hopefully begins soon on the Saturn. And he remembers something. An intelligence report he read several years before about a girl who wound up murdered in Estes Park in 1988, 70 miles northwest of the Thornton Police Department.
So at that point in time, I reached out to Larimer County and I got a copy of their case file. It had never been solved. And reading through the case file, this Jessica Arredondo just literally vanished.
There are moments in cases where something comes to light and it just strikes you as like a lightning bolt. That happens to Archer. And he wonders, could this be the same guy? The search continues for Rhonda Maloney without success. But Archer believes he's dealing with someone who's a repeat offender. He then reaches out to the Larimer County Sheriff's Department and asks to speak to the detective who worked the Jessica Arredondo case. in 1988, and he's put in touch with Detective Toppenberg.
I didn't know Toppenberg, but I hear a lot of really, really, really good things about John.
I'm John Toppenberg, retired deputy with the Larimer County Sheriff's Department. I retired as a detective working major crimes.
Detective Archer, Toppenberg.
There were obvious similarities between these two cases. This particular case started with people that were going south out of Rocky Mountain National Park.
This is really nice.
Oh, it's beautiful here.
Two tourists are returning from an early morning visit to Rocky Mountain National Park. They spot another overlook next to the highway, turnouts where you can go and take photographs. And then they find something horrible. They observe the naked body of a female lying in the rocks.
Officer, how are you?
Detective John Toppenberg from the Larimer County Sheriff's Department responds to the scene.
From examination of the scene, it was obvious that the body was airborne for a short while and came to rest 26 feet from where she was thrown.
There were tire tracks that indicated a car pulled in to the turnout and threw it over the embankment.
She was without clothes when she was thrown over the edge. It was obvious that she had sustained significant trauma to major portions of her body.
The body shows signs of sexual assault. Her face shows evidence of enormous blunt trauma. She's been kicked, she's been stomped. Her teeth are caved in backwards, still in her mouth.
This was perpetrated with purpose, with emotion.
This is someone who is enjoying what he's doing. He is in a wild rage.
We did not know who the victim was. It became clear that a missing person case in Denver coordinated with the description of the victim.
The girl is Jessica Arredondo, who just turned 21 years of age. She is from a Denver suburb.
We followed up with Joe Arredondo, the victim's father.
I was just so sad that happened. We were hoping for the best, but no, it just was terrible what happened. Jessica was very sly and very beautiful. She was very, very bubbly. She was a head cheerleader, and she was very popular. She got along with everybody.
This is just a young girl starting her life, age 21, has her first job. She works at U.S. West as a telephone operator.
We were really, really proud of Jessica. She's just a perfect daughter. The last time I saw her was on that Friday night, and she had plans to go out with a boyfriend. They were going to go out that night to a nightclub.
And at the last minute, she decided she wasn't feeling well and didn't want to go.
She said, I'll take you down there to the club, and I can leave you off there, and I'll come back and pick you up. So that's what she did. She went, she took him to the club, and that's it.
She drops him at the bar, says she'll be back in an hour, and she never returns. The father says that the night she disappeared, she was driving a new car she had just purchased.
An 88 Mustang, and she had to have that car. She loved that car so much, she didn't want any scratches or anything to happen to it.
And the next question is obvious. Where is that car? So Toppenberg was out of Bolo to all law enforcement agencies, Denver Metro. Within hours, the Mustang is found.
the vehicle's proximity to the bar was. It was at least a mile away.
So Toppenberg arrives at this car. The hazard lights are flashing. The keys are in the ignition. Now, this is this girl's dream to own this brand new car. Is she going to walk away? No.
It would be speculative, but obviously there would have been a kidnapping, violent kidnapping, where she was taken.
Toppenberg looks more closely at the car, and he notices fresh rear-end damage, as if she's been tapped from the rear by someone in a car. What if the driver of that car is the killer, and he is trying to get her to stop? She puts her four-way flashers on and gets out of her car to check the damage of her dream machine.
What the hell, man?
He gets out of his car and grabs her by the throat. And now she's gone and winds up thrown off a cliff on Highway 36.
But as that case progressed, we ran into way too many dead ends.
The Arredondo case goes cold, dormant. Until February 1994.
It looked like it was a case basically like Rhonda. If I didn't know better, I'd say the same person who killed her killed Jessica Arredondo.
Our killer's MO is the use of a fender bender, all for a simple reason. It's successful.
The Arredondo case came into sharp focus the moment the Rhonda Maloney case came into view. And there was no looking back.
Archer and Toppenberg are both convinced this is the same fellow. Using the same technique. This is him. Archer and Toppenberg are investigating two cases. It's the current case of the missing Miss Maloney, who still hasn't been found, and of course the death 6 years earlier of Jessica Arredondo. These are girls from the Denver suburb. They were hit from the rear by another vehicle.
And I was literally just matching Toppenberg's case to my suspect, who had the exact same MO.
I don't recall having any real question about whether that was perpetrated by the same suspect. It all fit.
This is only the beginning of this case. And there's about to be another murder if we don't find that girl.
At that point, we were still searching for Rhonda, and then Saturn. So I start reaching out to Rhonda's family, because that's where we wanted to start. Where did she come from? Where was she going? Why was she wherever she was when she was abducted?
My name is Carrie Gemeinhart. I'm Rhonda Maloney's sister. Rhonda was my best friend. We spent the majority of our time together growing up. She was always with me. We pretty much did everything together. Rhonda was a happy person who was lively and funny and had a great sense of humor and could live life to the fullest. At the time that this happened, it was myself, Rhonda, my brother-in-law, Carrie, and my mom. We all lived in the house together in Broomfield. They told us that they had found Rhonda's car on the side of the highway. You know it's not going to be good at that point. Rick Archer made quite an impression on me. He just seemed very focused.
You have to be understanding and patient while professionally pushing for the answers you need. It was really established early on that Rhonda had been at work.
She works in a casino in one of the mountain towns close to Denver, where gambling is permitted.
Rhonda was a cocktail waitress. She loved it. She made great money. She was really happy up there. She had to work the later shift, 6 to 2 in the morning, because that's when the casinos closed.
You're looking for a sexual predator, and here we have a pretty young woman who works in a casino as a cocktail waitress. Has our man been a customer in that casino?
We just had no idea. It was very important to get into the Central City casinos to review security footage, because as we all know, a lot can happen in a corner where somebody else isn't going to see it. We wanted to know if there was a casual connection with Rhonda and a young black man up there that could have expanded into something like this. Maybe somebody was a little handsy or a little bit too interested.
Archer reviews all of that to see to it that, yes, she was at work that night. Normal hours, no confrontations, no one followed her out the door. She left work when her shift was over and was headed home. So that reveals nothing to him. It's now been 24 hours since Rhonda Maloney was dragged out of the front yard of the Thornton Police Department, and we still have not found her. The search for the car continues, but no result.
So at that point in time, we actually returned to the initial scene where Rhonda's car was. Now, the car was already gone because we'd impounded it.
The crime scene is all you've got. And when you're not getting anywhere, you go back and start over. Look again, see something new. Who knows?
The scene down on I-76, it was dynamic. It was changing, not even daily, it was changing hourly based on traffic flow and weather conditions.
They spent hours canvassing that scene, and a detective walking up towards the abutment, which was some ways away from the car, he saw a black shape that was in the snow.
He heard something in the snow and walked over and found a pager, something that nobody else had seen.
This is 1994. People carried pagers. A little box that hooks in your belt, tied to a telephone number, where someone can transmit information to you.
They were able to turn the pager on and discovered that it had a message on there that says, "This is Belt Harlan, Detective Sergeant, Denver Police Department. If you found this pager, please return it to me at the Denver Police."
What's a Denver PD pager doing here? What if our sexual predator killer is a cop? Archer is shocked to discover this pager belongs to a Denver Police Department detective. What is it doing at a crime scene of a kidnapping and an attempted murder?
We pretty quickly put together a lot of information on Belt Harlan. Belt Harlan had a challenging career at the Denver Police Department.
He had got angry at someone in the drive-up lane, and he tried to climb through the window of the drive-up place to get at this guy. He was known for having a terrible temper.
If a policeman decides to start committing crimes, he's a dangerous criminal indeed. He knows the game.
We knew he had a troubled past, but the primary thing was that he didn't even come close to matching the description of our suspect.
He was older, up in age, darker skinned, nothing at all like the description that Jackie gave.
Around that same time, my partner, through his computer work at DMV, found a Saturn with the plate number Cha-Ching. This really interested us because we really felt that that was the sound that a one-armed bandit makes at the casinos, is Cha-Ching when it pays out.
He is a gambler. Well, now, Miss Maloney is a waitress in a casino. He does some more checking, and he finds that the owner of that car is Robert Harlan.
Robert was a light-skinned black man with a moon face and young.
We're not looking at a detective here. We're looking at a detective's son.
It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. Craziest thing.
So he looks up Mr. Robert Harlan. What Archer is amazed by is the length and depth of his criminal record.
Robert Harlan was a bad egg. Robert Harlan had many, many allegations of sexual assault, many, many allegations of sexual harassment in the workplace.
In addition to that, Archer discovers something else. He worked at U.S. West, which is where Arredondo worked. He worked there when she worked there 6 years ago. He is the perfect candidate for who we're looking for.
This is our guy. So at that point in time, in our world, it was called balls to the wall. This was the most dynamic case I have ever seen in my life. Things were unfolding so rapidly. Our focus was trying to find Rhonda. And in a case like this, we always use SWAT.
In the cop world, everything is RFN. Right now. I need a SWAT team. I need 100 policemen. I need a helicopter. Whatever it is you require is going to show up right now.
We knew he was armed. Absolutely knew he wasn't afraid to shoot. So we use explosive entry and flashbangs.
A flashbang detonates, creating this enormous noise which will deafen anybody for a few seconds, and a brilliant flash of light that will blind you. You are completely disoriented, you can't hear, and you can't see, and that's the point.
The SWAT team made a dynamic entry into the grandmother's house, and we found Robert Harlan in his bedroom. We woke him out of a sound sleep. We took him into custody with literally no issues whatsoever.
Here is Robert Harlan. There is no Miss Maloney. Where is she? They've got a canine with them. The canine hits on the car. They can see in the windows, nothing's in the car, but they can't see into the trunk. Archer is concerned he's going to find something horrible in the trunk of this machine. Archer opens the trunk and it's empty. Where is she and what did he do with her?
We transported Robert back to Thornton Police Department. My sergeant informed me that he had selected 2 other detectives to conduct the interviews with Robert, and that I was supposed to go home to get some rest. I just explained to him that's not ever going to happen.
Okay, before we even get started, Robert, do you have any idea why you might be down here?
Not really.
Robert Harlan was wrapped in this blanket and speaking very softly. Of course, Rhonda was missing, and they were still hopeful to some degree that they might find her alive.
So where am I going to find her?
I don't know where she is. I'm telling you the truth. I don't remember being with her. None of that.
Deny, deny, deny. That's what he does.
Jessica Ariando? Who was she? She was a co-worker. I don't know anything about that, man.
I was watching the interview and I was watching Robert just run the entire thing. And after a bit, I just walked to the interview room, opened the door and said, "You two are done, out."
Archer came in, fresh face and a new sort of approach.
Robert, look at me. Don't play this chick routine with me. Where is she?
First thing, right in the door. I was like, okay, you're not in charge here. I am.
If I find Rhonda and she's dead, I'm gonna come after you with both girls because you like me. And I don't like to be liked to, okay?
Up to this point, he's been able to play the victim. Well, now you have somebody who's going head to head with him.
What I want is I want you to tell me about Rhonda. And I want you to look at her. And I want you to remember how it felt. Okay, hey, I might have sold some drugs. You might have okay, whatever.
What does he do? He puts himself with the victim. He says for the purpose of selling drugs. We say for the purpose of rape and murder. But he puts himself with her. And that is significant.
So she gets in your car, you get in her car. How's that work, man? She got my car. She got in your car. Mm-hmm.
I was starting to get to him. And this has been part of my training for all those years, is to continue down that path.
Obviously, there's something that really pissed you off. Something happened out there. And I'd like to know what it was. The thing is...
And behold, there's a knock at the door because an attorney showed up at our police department. And it put a stop to everything. Everything.
What's that feeling like?
It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible because I knew that he was ready to give me his version of the rape.
So they're left with no confession, a few incriminating things maybe, but ultimately the case stands as it is. But the next day, Archer's in his office and gets a call from the front desk that Robert Harlan's father, Detective Belt Harlan, is there to see him. And he's carrying a cardboard box.
So Belt told us that he received a call from his other son who said that the day before Robert had come by his place, was fully covered in blood, asked if he could take a shower.
He took his shirt off and he took out a gun.
He left his gun there, borrowed his brother's car, and went, what we assume is looking for his pager.
And that's how that evidence was brought into the case. The gun that shot Rhonda and that had her blood on it, and the clothing that Robert had been wearing that had her blood on it.
It takes an amazing person and a strength of character to be able to turn evidence in and admit that your son's the killer.
Now Archer has hard physical evidence. Robert is bought and paid for this case. But they still don't know what happened to Miss Maloney.
3 days after taking Robert Harlan into custody, I received a call. It was a road out in Adams County called Imboden Road. And a small bridge over a ditch or creek. And underneath the bridge was Rhonda's body.
This girl is naked, savagely beaten and tortured.
Shattered jaw, shattered eye sockets, in addition to a bullet that was fired into her forehead. I was at that business for 28 years, and I've seen some horrendous crime scenes, and this is one of the most horrendous in terms of the injuries done to Rhonda Maloney.
When they found her, I was with my dad, and I saw the look on his face. And all I remember was screaming at him, no, don't say anything, because I knew as soon as I saw him.
Her family was very much, all we want is for him to be convicted, and that's all we need.
Robert Harlan goes on trial for the first-degree murder of Rhonda Maloney, and the attempted first-degree murder of Jackie Carrazzo. In the autopsy, the toxicology report came back negative. This totally unravels Harlan's statement about selling this girl drugs. She doesn't use drugs.
We presented evidence that showed that Harlan was a sociopath, that he was a predator, and it was the way of his life.
The idea of surveilling and selecting a victim in advance makes it plausible that Robert Harlan followed Rhonda Maloney's vehicle after she left work at the casino. He caused a minor vehicle accident causing her to stop. She got out of her car to look for damage. He was able to get her into his car, raping her at gunpoint for 2 hours.
Jackie came around the corner. Jackie stops, and then it's a foot race. Robert goes running towards them, trying to stop them. Hence, in the process, lost his pager.
Harlan fired at the car as he pursued it as they tried to escape from him until they crashed in the front yard of the Thornton PD. So he grabbed the victim again and dragged her out of that car back into his. He ended Rhonda's life that night and put her body in a place where he thought no one would ever be able to find.
Obviously, the central piece in this case was Jackie. She was shot in the spine that caused her paralysis, and she testified bravely, incredibly detailed. It's just amazing.
Jury finds him guilty of first-degree murder, of attempted first-degree murder, first-degree sexual assault, and second-degree kidnapping. Mr. Robert Harlan will spend his life behind bars. Robert Harlan never admitted to the murder of Jessica Arredondo. There was never enough evidence found or presented to move anywhere forward with charging him with the homicide.
If it had not been for his attorney, we would have certainly gone and interviewed him. It left me with a feeling of frustration, a feeling of anger.
We think he's involved, but he has never admitted or even said anything about it. We keep on hoping that something will come up and that we'll be able to know what really happened.
I think this case was really important. It left me feeling really proud of everything that we had accomplished. Proud and sad because I didn't think Rhonda's family would ever really get over it.
Her birthday, I go up to the cemetery and I'll go sit and talk to her. And I tell her all the time I love her. Miss her. I never want Rhonda to be forgotten.
Robert Harlan is exceptionally dangerous. He is sociopathic. I don't believe that he sat still for 6 years. This guy is a sexual predator. I'm sure he committed other rapes in that interim, but there's no proof that he did. You often hear people say there's good in everyone. I disagree. Not everyone.
The night of September 12th, 1999, began like any other in the sleepy town of Lancaster, Ohio. Streetlights flickered as a cold wind swept down the narrow streets, rustling fallen leaves and carrying the distant sound of a dog barking. Nobody could have imagined that within hours the town would be shaken to its core by an event that would linger like a shadow for decades. Emily Harper, 19 years old, vanished without a trace. She was last seen leaving her part-time job at a local diner, a small tip jar jingling in her hand, a smile on her lips, waving goodbye to her co-workers. That smile would never reach anyone again. Her absence was discovered the next morning when she didn't show up for her college class. Friends called, parents panicked, and by the afternoon the town was buzzing with whispers of fear and disbelief. The local police, initially cautious, began what would soon become a sprawling investigation that stretched the limits of their resources and patience. The diner had security cameras, but they were outdated, grainy at best, capturing only blurred outlines of a young woman walking toward her car, the license plate barely legible. Witnesses reported a strange van parked nearby, white, unmarked, its driver unseen, as if waiting for something, someone. The descriptions were vague, the leads cold, the trail evaporating like mist under the morning sun. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years, and Emily Harper became a name that haunted every corner of Lancaster. Posters adorned telephone poles, pictures faded in the relentless sun, and the town grew quieter, more cautious, each parent watching their children a little longer, a little closer. The case file, thick with reports, interviews, and inconclusive leads, sat on a dusty shelf in the police department, a monument to frustration, a testament to the unknown. Every officer who passed by it felt the weight of unsolved questions pressing down like a heavy fog. And yet, every year, the community held its breath, hoping for a breakthrough, dreading the possibility that some answers might never come. Investigators revisited the diner countless times. They scrutinized receipts, the worn leather of chairs, the scuff marks near the back door. Each corner seemed to whisper secrets, and yet nothing concrete emerged. They interviewed everyone, coworkers, neighbors, strangers passing through. Some had noticed a figure watching Emily, a man in a dark hoodie lingering too long by the curb, someone whose presence felt wrong, but the memory was fleeting, the faces indistinct. Calls came in from tipsters claiming knowledge, anonymous voices on the edge of hysteria, each promising revelations that dissolved under scrutiny. A neighbor remembered a scream in the night, sharp and sudden, sliced by the wind. Another recalled a car speeding away, its engine growling in the otherwise silent streets. The fragments were scattered, incomplete, like pieces of a puzzle tossed by a storm. And the more the detectives dug, the more the town seemed to shrink around them, streets narrowing, homes closing in, a collective heartbeat quickening with the unease of unanswered questions. The local newspaper ran headlines that cut through the air like knives. Mystery of missing teen shocks community. Vanished without a trace. Police seek leads. Parents plead for information. Each story carried the same weight: fear, suspense, helplessness. The town's pulse was caught in a rhythm of anxiety and hope, each day blurring into the next, yet the case remained an open wound, festering quietly, a cold ember glowing in the collective memory. Forensics were limited at the time. DNA technology had not yet reached its modern precision, fingerprints were scarce, and trace evidence proved elusive. Police collected what they could: a single strand of hair on the diner's counter, a partial footprint outside the parking lot, a set of fibers clinging to Emily's abandoned purse. They ran tests, but the results were inconclusive. Each potential lead seemed promising at first, a flicker of light in a dense darkness, only to vanish under closer examination. The evidence became a chorus of unanswered questions, each whispering of a presence that had come and gone without leaving a name. Detectives faced sleepless nights, reviewing interviews, walking the streets, retracing steps, imagining scenarios that might explain the disappearance. Was it someone she knew, a stranger, a local, or passing through? Theories multiplied like shadows in the fog, and each carried a weight of possibility and dread. Meanwhile, the community remained on edge. Parents warned children not to walk alone. Friends looked over shoulders. Strangers were met with suspicion. The disappearance altered routines, instilled vigilance, and seeded a subtle paranoia that threaded through daily life, unseen but felt in every glance, every step. Years passed. Investigators changed, retired, moved on. The file grew thicker with annotations, some hopeful, many frustrated, most forgotten in the shuffle of unsolved cases. Yet, the town never forgot. Emily's bedroom remained untouched in her family's home, a shrine of memory, her favorite books lined on shelves, posters still tacked to the walls, photographs frozen in time. Community vigils were held annually, candles flickering against the Ohio night, faces lit by trembling light, voices calling out for answers that never arrived. And through it all, the cold case lingered, a specter in the hearts of those who knew her, an unrelenting question that refused to fade. Detectives occasionally reopened the case when new technologies emerged, revisiting evidence with a meticulous, almost obsessive attention to detail. A single strand of hair was re-examined using modern DNA analysis. Fibers once thought irrelevant were reanalyzed, compared against updated databases. Witness statements were revisited, scrutinized for inconsistencies, for patterns missed in the chaos of initial interviews. The investigation stretched across the town, threading through its history, connecting long-forgotten details in a way that hinted at something larger, something almost visible, if only one looked closely enough. The town itself seemed to participate unconsciously, memories resurfacing like echoes, neighbors recalling conversations, cars parked oddly, fleeting glimpses of strangers years ago. And yet, the mystery persisted. Every clue that surfaced seemed to open new questions rather than answers. The town's collective imagination filled gaps with horror, speculation, and grief. How could a young life disappear without a trace? Who had watched Emily that night? What force had intervened to pull her from the streets of Lancaster, leaving behind only silence and fear? The questions hovered, unresolved, infiltrating dreams, conversations, the quiet moments before sleep. Parents awoke in panic, recalling details from long ago, replaying them, searching for patterns, for signs they had missed. Friends debated theories, arguments rising over minutiae, the mundane twisted into speculation. The cold case file became a legend in the police department, a measure of diligence, patience, and human persistence. Officers who had worked the initial investigation passed it to younger colleagues, urging them to consider angles overlooked, to pay attention to the whispers of the town, to never let the case go entirely cold. Community meetings featured discussions, maps spread across tables, sticky notes marking possible sightings, reminders that even decades-old cases could be broken with enough attention, enough determination. Every detail mattered. The color of Emily's jacket, the timing of a delivery truck passing the diner, a neighbor's late-night jog, a dog barking at an unseen presence, all fragments in a puzzle that refused to assemble. Each lead, no matter how trivial, was pursued, cataloged, filed. And still, nothing definitive emerged. The town's nights carried a tension that could be felt on the wind, a subtle tremor in the air that spoke of absence, of loss, of questions that would not die quietly. The shadow of Emily Harper's disappearance stretched across the years, connecting generations, forming an invisible line of vigilance, remembrance, and hope. The year turned to decade. The turn of the millennium brought technology, DNA advances, cold case units, renewed interest. Investigators returned with fresh eyes, new methods, a hunger to close a chapter that had defined their community for 10 years. Old evidence was dusted, scanned, analyzed in ways unimaginable in 1999. Letters and tips were re-examined, witness statements cross-checked with modern tools. The town watched silently, cautiously optimistic, aware that after 10 years, hope was fragile but not extinguished. Families who had moved away returned temporarily, drawn by the possibility of closure, contributing memories, insight, details they had carried silently for years. Yet despite advances, the night Emily disappeared remained a ghost, elusive, untouched by certainty. The diner stood unchanged, a witness frozen in time, chairs still worn from the countless meals served, counters bearing marks of hurried cleaning, every surface steeped in memory. Streets remained narrow, houses unchanged, wind still carrying sounds that could be imagined as whispers. And within the police department, the file remained, thicker now, a complex web of reports, evidence, and theories, each sheet a thread in a tapestry of questions without answers. The community of Lancaster, Ohio, lived under this shadow, and yet life continued. Births, deaths, weddings, graduations, all milestones marked by the lingering absence of one young woman whose story remained unfinished. Conversations often trailed into silence when her name was mentioned. A collective holding of breath seemed to accompany each mention of the case, a subtle, unspoken recognition of the unresolved. The town's heartbeat, intertwined with Emily's story, pulsed in quiet suspense, the cold case becoming part of the fabric of daily life, a story that demanded attention, reflection, and persistence. A reminder that sometimes the past refuses to let go, that questions once raised can echo for decades, shaping lives, shaping a community, shaping memory itself. Time passed, yet the streets of Lancaster seemed suspended in a peculiar stasis, as if the town itself refused to move on, as though each cracked sidewalk and flickering street lamp held a memory too sharp to forget. Emily Harper's disappearance had etched itself into every household, a ghost hovering at dinner tables, lingering behind classroom doors, echoing through the whispers of teenage friends and wary parents. Investigators, new and old, scoured records once thought exhausted, tracing the faintest threads of possibility. Old phone logs, long-forgotten bank transactions, library checkouts, even mundane grocery receipts. Each became a potential window into a night swallowed by darkness. They re-interviewed neighbors, recalling fleeting glances, shadows on the periphery, the sensation of being watched, of someone or something lurking just beyond sight. The town, small yet tightly knit, yielded fragments of memory only when coaxed by persistence, by subtle patience, by the promise that the past could finally speak. The diner remained central to every theory, its neon sign a dim glow in the night, washing the street in intermittent light, like a heartbeat against the quiet. Staff remembered Emily's last shift with a precision sharpened by years of reflection. She had laughed too loudly, they said, an echo bouncing off the walls, a hint of youthful defiance before the unknown struck. Her car, a modest blue sedan, was parked along the curb, doors unlocked, keys in the ignition, as though the driver simply stepped into thin air. Surveillance footage, once grainy, was revisited with digital enhancement, revealing shapes, movements, and shadows previously overlooked. A hooded figure lingering near the diner's corner became a recurring specter in multiple frames, always at the edge of clarity, never fully visible. And in the fog of uncertainty, every resident began to wonder if they had seen the same figure, if they had ignored a warning, if they had glanced too briefly at something important. The line between memory and imagination blurred, and the town itself felt the tension. Each streetlight flicker, each distant engine rumble, each shuttered window, a question waiting to be answered. Law enforcement brought in cold case specialists, analysts who had cracked decades-old disappearances, seeking patterns invisible to untrained eyes. They examined Emily's social circles, her friends, classmates, acquaintances, even passing strangers she might have encountered. Rumors, whispered for years, were cataloged, weighed, dismissed, or pursued. Anonymous calls surged in, some clearly hoaxes, others containing fragments of truth hidden beneath fear, guilt, or obsession. A man claiming to know the truth spoke in riddles over the phone, his voice trembling, vague, almost pleading, yet vanished before detectives could act. Notes were left in mailbox slots, a hastily scribbled message about a car in a field miles from town, a hint of someone's name, incomplete and indecipherable. Each lead felt like a pulse in the darkness, faint but alive, and each failure added weight to the town's collective unease. Emily's family became the living memory of the vanished, bearing the burden of unanswered questions with stoic determination. Her mother, Ann Harper, walked the streets nightly, retracing steps, eyes scanning the shadows for signs, small flickers of hope, a silhouette, a sound, a presence that might explain the unexplainable. Her father, Michael, spent hours in the police department, combing through reports, insisting on reanalysis, refusing to let a single detail slip into obscurity. Siblings, friends, classmates, each carried the absence, each felt it acutely in birthdays, holidays, quiet moments when the town's normal rhythm continued around a void they could not fill. And as years wore on, their persistence became the heartbeat of the investigation, a steady, relentless drum driving detectives to look deeper, to question harder, to imagine what others might dismiss as impossible. Detectives discovered the strange van again and again in witness recollections and small inconsistencies in a tire track that hadn't matched any registered vehicles. It became a symbol of the unknown, a shadow cast across memory and time. They traced plates, contacted local repair shops, sought out past residents, combed through employment records, nothing yielding a match. Each dead end reinforced the chilling reality. The disappearance had been deliberate, precise, almost clinical. Emily had not been taken at random. Someone had planned, waited, and executed an act that erased a young life in seconds, leaving behind only questions and fragments. The town's psyche deepened its imprint of fear. High school corridors whispered stories, adults exchanged cautious glances, neighbors left lights on at night. Children who were toddlers when Emily vanished grew up under the weight of the tale, haunted by images pieced together from rumors, imagining horrors in the familiar streets they had always thought safe. Even routine activities, the evening walk to the corner store, the drive past the diner, the jog down a quiet street, felt loaded with tension, a potential reenactment of a moment that had altered the town forever. And yet, there was also a tenacity, a stubborn refusal to surrender to despair. Town meetings convened, candlelight vigils were held, posters were renewed, new investigators arrived, and the case continued to breathe, alive in collective consciousness, persistent as the cold Ohio wind. In 2004, advances in DNA analysis rekindled a spark of hope. A single hair found on Emily's purse, previously dismissed, was subjected to mitochondrial testing, revealing partial matches to potential relatives of unknown suspects. The results were inconclusive yet tantalizing, providing threads that detectives could not ignore. They mapped relationships, connections, past conflicts, and movements, tracing an invisible web that seemed to stretch across town and beyond, hinting at a network of oversight, concealment, and unspoken truths. It became evident that Emily's disappearance was not just an isolated incident, but potentially connected to patterns of predation and secrecy previously undetected. Witnesses were approached again, interviews conducted with surgical precision, recollections surfaced that had been buried by time, details unnoticed during the initial investigation now assumed significance. The hooded figure, once a vague shadow, now became a critical point of interest. Multiple witnesses placed it near different locations in the hours surrounding Emily's disappearance. Investigators cross-referenced statements, reconstructed timelines, and examined minor inconsistencies, each step narrowing the focus, each question intensifying the tension. In the quiet of the office, detectives stared at maps, charts, and photos, the room heavy with the weight of years and the oppressive knowledge that every small choice, every misremembered detail, could shift the path toward truth or further frustration. In the background, Lancaster itself seemed to live the case. Its streets carried a silent vigilance. Homes reflected a quiet anxiety. Community members absorbed fragments of information, all forming an invisible network of collective memory. Sometimes, someone would report a car seen late at night, a shadow that moved too deliberately, a light that flickered across a window. Though these accounts were often inconclusive, they became part of a growing mosaic, a tapestry of observations that eventually would intersect with more tangible leads. The town existed in a suspended state between ordinary life and the haunting of unresolved crime. By 2007, nearly a decade after Emily's disappearance, the police department had assembled a specialized cold case team. They revisited every piece of evidence, reanalyzed every witness statement, and began employing psychological profiling, geographic mapping, and pattern analysis. They contacted surrounding counties, identifying similar disappearances, searching for links previously unnoticed. The profile of a methodical, patient perpetrator began to emerge, a person capable of blending into the community while striking with precision, leaving no trace for years, even decades. The idea was chilling. Someone had committed an act of violence so deliberate that the threads of discovery were intentionally obscured, each detail a carefully constructed misdirection. Community engagement remained crucial. Locals provided photos, diaries, journals, memories long tucked away. A retired postal worker recalled an unassuming delivery van parked unusually one morning, noting the license plate partially. A former co-worker remembered a man lingering near the diner weeks before the disappearance, behavior she had dismissed at the time. Investigators integrated these recollections into timelines, matching subtle patterns of movement, exploring possibilities that had once seemed peripheral. Each contribution, no matter how minor, brought the case closer to potential resolution, highlighting the intricate web of observation and memory that had been quietly accumulating over years. Meanwhile, the Harper family maintained a relentless presence. Annual vigils continued, anniversaries marked with candlelight and speeches. Speeches punctuated by silence, the weight of absence pressing upon every word. Family members interviewed for documentaries, local news, and podcasts, speaking of Emily with love, frustration, and hope. They ensured the story remained alive in public consciousness, a constant reminder that even decades-old mysteries demanded attention, that the community's memory could become a tool in the pursuit of justice. And so, as years turned into another decade, the streets of Lancaster, the walls of the diner, the offices of law enforcement, and the minds of the community carried the tension of unanswered questions. Every shadow, every unfamiliar face, every unclaimed package became potential clues. Investigators honed their focus, analyzing minuscule details, connecting the seemingly insignificant, each discovery a step closer to illuminating a night shrouded in darkness. The cold case, though years old, had evolved into a living puzzle, each fragment of evidence a pulse in the persistent heartbeat of Emily Harper's story, waiting for the moment when silence would finally break, when the unknown would give way to truth, and when the long shadow of 1999 would finally lift, if only for a moment, revealing the contours of a crime that had haunted a town for nearly a decade. The autumn of 2009 settled over Lancaster like a warning, painting streets in muted orange and brown, wind whipping through skeletal trees, as if carrying secrets from a decade past. Emily Harper's disappearance had not dimmed in the town's memory. Instead, it had become a spectral presence, a shadow in the corner of every room, every hallway, every whispered conversation. Cold case detectives, seasoned and new, pored over old reports with a precision sharpened by time and technology. Each page of the file, yellowed, creased, annotated, was dissected for patterns, inconsistencies, threads that might have slipped through the cracks in 1999. They revisited the diner obsessively, noting the wear on the floor tiles, the scuff marks near the rear exit, even the positioning of tables during her last shift. Every detail mattered. The investigation had become an exercise in patience, in obsessive cataloging, in imagining what could not be seen. Witness interviews were conducted anew, memory stretched thin by the passage of years, yet sometimes stretched enough to reveal overlooked fragments. A neighbor recalled a man in a dark hoodie leaning against a lamppost, checking a watch as though waiting for an appointment long forgotten by everyone else. Another remembered a car door slamming, a faint cry in the night, the kind of sound that cuts through ordinary life and leaves an imprint on the subconscious. Tip lines rang with the occasional surge of information, some mundane, some chilling. An anonymous caller spoke of a field on the outskirts of town where a van had been parked weeks before Emily vanished, a detail previously unnoticed. Forensics was revisited with vigor. Hair samples, fibers, and partial fingerprints were run through databases that had grown exponentially since the late 90s, the hope of a match tantalizingly close, yet just out of reach. The cold case file had grown into a sprawling, almost living document, as though it held its own pulse, reminding detectives that time was both ally and adversary. The psychological profile of the perpetrator, developed over years, was chilling in its precision. Investigators considered a person methodical, calculating, patient, someone able to blend seamlessly into daily life while orchestrating acts of violence with surgical precision. The possibility that Emily's disappearance was not random but planned added a layer of dread to every theory. Profiles suggested familiarity with the town, knowledge of patterns, awareness of routines. The detective team mapped movements, cross-referenced social circles, explored past grievances, and examined anyone with a potential motive, however distant it might seem. Patterns emerged in whispers, in subtle alignments between disparate details, a recurring presence at locations near Emily's home, unexplained absences in others' recollections, behaviors that seemed mundane yet now took on sinister undertones. Community engagement played an unexpected role. Residents provided photographs, journals, and accounts long considered irrelevant. A retired delivery driver remembered an unassuming van, noting details that initially seemed inconsequential: a dent in the side panel, a distinctive hubcap, a faint scent lingering in the air near its parking spot. Investigators traced these details with obsessive care, building timelines that accounted for each movement, each possibility. The town itself became a network of living memory, every conversation, every recollection, feeding into the larger investigation. Emily's family maintained a relentless vigil, keeping her story alive against the relentless erosion of memory. Candlelight vigils continued annually, speeches intertwined with long pauses punctuated by tears and the unspoken recognition of absence. They participated in interviews, documentaries, podcasts, and community outreach, ensuring that Emily's name was never forgotten, that the town remained aware, attentive, persistent. The presence of family in the investigation provided both motivation and moral weight, a constant reminder to investigators that this case was more than evidence. It was human life, frozen in absence, demanding resolution. As investigations deepened, anomalies in the original police reports began to surface. A witness statement from the night of the disappearance, previously dismissed as inconsistent, aligned with another report from a neighbor several blocks away, revealing a movement pattern that had gone unnoticed. The hooded figure seen near the diner now appeared in multiple locations at staggered intervals, suggesting a deliberate surveillance of Emily's routine, a patience that stretched across hours, perhaps days. Investigators began to reconstruct the night with granular attention, noting the timing of each vehicle, each pedestrian, each fleeting shadow. It was painstaking work, but the outlines of a plan, however elusive, began to emerge from the fog of memory and time. Forensic advancements continued to open doors once thought permanently sealed. Hair and fiber analysis, DNA phenotyping, and partial fingerprints provided the potential for matches that had been impossible in the late 90s. Each result was a whisper of hope, a pulse in the ongoing rhythm of the investigation. And with each new piece of data, the town of Lancaster felt the tension rise, as if collectively holding its breath, aware that a breakthrough might finally pierce the decade-long darkness. Patterns in communication emerged unexpectedly. Anonymous letters and phone calls, some hoaxes, some genuine, were reanalyzed with linguistic forensics. The peculiar syntax, recurring phrases, and timing of calls suggested a single source behind multiple interactions, a mind attempting to control the narrative, to guide attention, to tease investigators and the community alike. It became evident that whoever had taken Emily had carefully manipulated perception, leaving subtle breadcrumbs while concealing the most critical pieces of information. The meticulous nature of the perpetrator suggested not only planning but also a chilling awareness of investigative methods, an understanding of human psychology, and a deliberate effort to remain invisible. Detectives revisited physical locations connected to Emily's life: her school, her favorite cafe, the small park where she often walked, the diner where she worked. Each site was meticulously examined, scanned for overlooked traces, compared against witness statements, and cross-referenced with newly recovered surveillance footage. In some instances, subtle marks, once considered insignificant, a scuff on the pavement, a displaced stone, an overlooked tire track, were given renewed attention, each one potentially revealing a fragment of a night long shrouded in uncertainty. The process was exhausting, consuming days, weeks, months, yet the possibility of uncovering the truth drove the team forward with relentless focus. Psychological profiling meetings grew tense and urgent. Investigators debated motives, timelines, behavioral tendencies, and likely patterns of movement. They explored connections to local criminal activity, transient populations, even previously dismissed suspects with minor criminal records. Each discussion layered new possibilities atop existing theories, a delicate balance between overanalysis and the risk of ignoring critical details. Patterns began to coalesce, subtle yet persistent, suggesting that Emily's disappearance, though decades old, was not beyond resolution. Community members contributed in ways both subtle and significant. A high school teacher recalled a conversation with Emily, a fleeting remark about someone following her, a comment lost in memory until revisited years later. Another neighbor reported a van parked long enough to cast suspicion, coinciding with other sightings of similar vehicles in the area. These recollections, minor on their own, interwove into a growing lattice of evidence, each observation a stitch in a tapestry that stretched over a decade. The town itself had become an inadvertent witness, its collective memory a silent participant in the ongoing investigation. Emily's family, undeterred by the passage of time, worked tirelessly with investigators. They provided insight into her routines, her social interactions, and her daily movements. Each detail, however minute, became a potential key. Candlelight vigils continued, memorials were maintained, and the town's residents, many of whom had grown up with the case as a defining shadow of their community, remained vigilant. Stories of the hooded figure, of the mysterious van, of fleeting glimpses and strange sounds were passed down, ensuring that the investigation benefited from the persistence of human memory, its tenacity bridging the gap between past and present. The cold case file, now decades old, had become a living document, growing with every new technology, every fresh memory, every analytic method applied. Investigators mapped timelines with staggering detail, overlaying witness statements, vehicle movements, and forensic analysis to reconstruct the night of Emily's disappearance. The result was a lattice of time and space, a web of connections that, while still incomplete, began to reveal the outlines of events once hidden. The town, in turn, existed in a state of perpetual suspense, its streets echoing with the tension of unspoken knowledge, the faintest clue capable of reigniting hope or deepening despair. As 2010 approached, the investigation reached a point of cautious optimism. The combination of advanced forensics, renewed witness testimony, community engagement, and the meticulous work of dedicated investigators had transformed a once stagnant case into a living, evolving pursuit. The night Emily vanished, once shrouded in absolute darkness, was beginning to be illuminated by threads of evidence, subtle yet persistent, weaving together fragments that had lain dormant for over a decade. And yet, despite progress, the shadow of uncertainty remained. The town's collective heartbeat quickened with each discovery, aware that the final revelation was still out of reach, that the answers, when they came, would bring both closure and shock in equal measure. The cold case of Emily Harper was no longer merely a memory, it was an active presence, shaping the rhythms of a town, guiding the actions of law enforcement, and haunting the hearts of a family that refused to surrender. Every shadow, every unexplained sound, every overlooked detail carried the potential to crack the silence, to expose the truth that had eluded Lancaster for more than a decade. The stage was set for revelation, for confrontation with a past long buried, and for the emergence of answers that would reverberate far beyond the quiet streets of the Ohio town that had waited, hoped, and feared for 12 years. By 2011, Lancaster had become a town defined by shadows, each street corner and alley a potential repository of long-buried truths. Emily Harper's absence had carved itself into the fabric of daily life. Parents held their children tighter, friends whispered stories half-remembered, and neighbors cast furtive glances at any figure loitering too long near windows or doorways. The cold case team, a blend of seasoned detectives and fresh eyes, worked tirelessly to untangle the web of uncertainty. Every witness interview, no matter how delayed by years, was treated as a potential key. A teacher remembered Emily mentioning a car that seemed to follow her, a detail lost in the routine chaos of high school life, now recalled with precision. A local mechanic reported an unregistered white van that seemed to appear at different corners of town over consecutive nights, vanishing before anyone could trace it. These fragments, once dismissed as minor, were now threads in a tapestry of investigation that spanned more than a decade. Forensic science had advanced exponentially since the night of Emily's disappearance. Partial fingerprints, once useless, were reanalyzed with new algorithms capable of recognizing patterns invisible to the human eye. Fibers and hair samples were cross-referenced against national databases, uncovering partial matches that suggested potential connections previously unconsidered. DNA phenotyping offered glimpses into characteristics of unknown individuals linked to the scene. Every detail, every microscopic trace became a heartbeat in a rhythm of pursuit, each one carrying the promise or the frustration of revelation. The detectives' offices, walls lined with charts, photographs, and timelines, had become a physical manifestation of the cold case itself, a labyrinth of memory, hypothesis, and obsessive scrutiny. Witnesses surfaced with information that reshaped the investigation. A neighbor reported a hooded figure standing motionless near Emily's route home, holding something that glinted briefly in the streetlights. Another recalled a distant engine roar at an unusual hour, an observation that, in isolation, seemed trivial, yet when layered with other reports, formed a disturbing pattern. Community tip lines yielded sporadic breakthroughs, a voicemail describing a field where the white van had parked weeks before Emily vanished, a letter recounting a man who loitered near her school. Each lead, pursued with meticulous care, wove the strands of possibility tighter, constructing a framework of suspicion and potential resolution. Emily's family remained the constant in the maelstrom of investigation. Her mother, Ann Harper, had grown quieter over the years, but no less vigilant, retracing the streets nightly, eyes scanning shadows, listening for anything unusual. Her father, Michael, immersed himself in the cold case files, connecting dots invisible to others, often working late into the night with little sleep, guided by a singular purpose: answers. Siblings and close friends maintained contact with investigators, offering context, insight, and memories that might have seemed trivial yet could contain pivotal information. Their persistence lent urgency to the investigation, a constant reminder that this was not merely a cold case but a human life lost, a void felt deeply by those who loved Emily. Patterns of potential criminal behavior began to emerge. The hooded figure and white van recurred in multiple independent reports, suggesting surveillance rather than random coincidence. Investigators hypothesized a perpetrator familiar with Emily's routines, someone patient enough to plan, observe, and execute without leaving obvious traces. The idea that her disappearance had been carefully orchestrated brought a chilling clarity to every overlooked detail: misaligned footprints, scuffed pavement, misplaced personal items. Each seemingly inconsequential observation now resonated with significance, painting a portrait of methodical, deliberate criminal action. The cold case team employed geographic profiling to map the movements associated with the night of Emily's disappearance. Patterns emerged, suggesting specific areas of surveillance, probable escape routes, and locations of potential concealment. Each map became a living document, constantly updated with new observations and reinterpretations of existing evidence. Investigators retraced Emily's final steps, measuring distances, noting sight lines, considering where an observer could have remained unseen, imagining possibilities that stretched the boundaries of conventional thought. These reconstructions, painstaking in their detail, provided a framework for understanding events that had long been opaque, illuminating potential sequences in a night cloaked by darkness. Community memory played a crucial role in uncovering overlooked leads. Neighbors recalled conversations, fleeting observations, and unusual behaviors from years prior, often catalyzed by public appeals or local media coverage. An elderly resident mentioned seeing the white van parked near the outskirts of town, its engine idling silently, weeks before Emily's disappearance. Another recalled an unfamiliar figure loitering near the diner days before, the description aligning eerily with multiple other accounts. These recollections, while fragmented and sometimes inconsistent, offered a network of observations that, when woven together, began to suggest a pattern of predation, observation, and opportunity. Emily's friends, too, contributed to the investigation's evolving picture. Discussions resurfaced about conversations with Emily in the months leading up to her disappearance, remarks about feeling watched, encounters with strangers, and seemingly insignificant interactions that, in retrospect, hinted at unease. Detectives meticulously documented these accounts, comparing them against known events, mapping potential routes, and cross-referencing with previously gathered evidence. The complexity of the investigation grew, but so too did the clarity of potential patterns, each insight offering a sliver of hope in a decade-long fog. Technological advancements in forensic science provided renewed momentum. Hair and fiber analysis, enhanced fingerprint recognition, and the use of national criminal databases enabled investigators to re-examine evidence previously deemed inconclusive. Partial DNA matches suggested familial connections, leading to targeted inquiries that were impossible in the early 2000s. Digital enhancements of surveillance footage revealed shapes and movements that had once been invisible, further corroborating witness statements. The combination of human memory, technological innovation, and relentless investigation began to close the gap between uncertainty and clarity, though the resolution remained elusive, tantalizingly close, yet maddeningly out of reach. Psychological profiling became increasingly integral to the investigation. Experts analyzed behaviors, communication patterns, and environmental factors, constructing a profile of the potential perpetrator that informed both physical and digital searches. Linguistic analysis of anonymous calls and letters suggested a single author behind multiple interactions, someone attempting to manipulate investigators, gauge reactions, and maintain control over the narrative. The meticulous nature of these actions suggested a calculated, patient mind, someone aware of investigative methods, capable of blending into the community and adept at remaining unseen for years. By 2012, the cold case team had established a framework connecting disparate elements: witness accounts, forensic evidence, technological enhancements, and community memory. Each thread, when considered alone, appeared tenuous. Together, they suggested a coherent, though incomplete, picture of the night Emily vanished. The white van, the hooded figure, repeated sightings, minor physical traces, and anecdotal recollections formed a lattice of potential causality, guiding investigators to areas and individuals previously overlooked. The town itself, now more than a decade removed from the original disappearance, felt the mounting tension, aware that a breakthrough could arrive at any moment, reshaping perceptions and altering the collective narrative forever. The Harper family continued their unwavering involvement, attending community meetings, offering interviews, and coordinating with investigators to ensure that new leads were thoroughly pursued. Their presence maintained public awareness, ensured the flow of information, and reinforced the human dimension of a case that had otherwise become a labyrinth of evidence and conjecture. They remained vigilant, aware that resolution might bring both closure and renewed pain, yet determined that Emily's story would not fade into obscurity. The reconstruction of Emily's final hours became increasingly detailed, incorporating witness testimony, forensic analysis, geographic profiling, and temporal sequencing. Detectives traced movements, calculated sightlines, and analyzed environmental factors, attempting to place Emily, potential observers, and possible escape routes within a coherent timeline. Each refinement brought the team closer to understanding the mechanisms of her disappearance, yet the inherent uncertainty of human memory, compounded by the passage of time, meant that the investigation required both patience and intuition, careful calibration of inference and fact. The town of Lancaster itself became an active participant in the investigation. Residents shared memories, photographs, and anecdotes, contributing to the growing body of evidence. Unusual sightings, long forgotten, resurfaced. Previously dismissed observations gained new significance. The collective memory of the community, when coupled with the meticulous work of investigators, formed a unique repository of information, a distributed consciousness capable of highlighting patterns invisible to any single observer. Each contribution, however small, fed into the broader narrative, reinforcing the persistence of human memory in the pursuit of truth. As 2013 approached, the investigation had reached a critical juncture. The combination of forensic innovation, witness collaboration, psychological profiling, and geographic analysis had created a network of leads that converged towards specific areas, individuals, and behaviors. Each step forward was measured and deliberate, guided by both empirical data and interpretive insight. The cold case of Emily Harper, once thought permanently frozen in time, was now an active, evolving pursuit, its resolution still uncertain, yet increasingly within reach. The shadow of 1999 had endured over a decade, shaping the lives of those in Lancaster, influencing behavior, perception, and memory. Every street corner, every alley, every building carried the weight of absence, the lingering presence of questions unanswered. Yet within that shadow, investigators worked tirelessly, piecing together fragments, seeking coherence, hunting for the moment when the fog of mystery would finally lift. The town, the family, and the detectives shared a singular hope: that the invisible threads connecting people, time, and memory would eventually converge, revealing the truth hidden for more than a decade, and delivering answers long denied to a community shaped by fear, loss, and unrelenting suspense. By 2014, the town of Lancaster had grown into a mosaic of memory and suspicion, each resident carrying fragments of Emily Harper's story, subtle recollections that, when pieced together, suggested a web of observation, patience, and unseen presence. Investigators, combining technological tools with decades of accumulated intuition, worked to untangle the strands of a night long lost to darkness. Every alley, streetlight, and back door became part of a meticulous reconstruction, each detail scrutinized for significance. Witnesses, both old and new, provided insights that created a lattice of human perception: a shadow glimpsed too late, a van idling too long, footsteps echoing in the wrong direction. These observations, when cross-referenced, painted a chilling portrait of a carefully orchestrated disappearance, a calculated act hidden beneath layers of ordinary life. Forensic breakthroughs provided glimmers of possibility. Partial DNA matches, once impossible to discern, now suggested familial or associative links that hinted at potential suspects. Fibers, hair samples, and trace evidence from the diner and Emily's personal effects were revisited using cutting-edge analysis, revealing details overlooked during the initial investigation. Investigators meticulously cataloged each result, overlaying it onto timelines, geographic patterns, and witness statements. Every fragment of data, no matter how seemingly insignificant, became a pulse in the heartbeat of the investigation, each one carrying the tantalizing promise of illumination in a case long shrouded in darkness. Emily's family remained a constant human anchor in the sea of uncertainty. Ann Harper walked the streets, retracing steps, scanning shadows, listening for the faintest hint of recognition or anomaly. Michael Harper pored over reports, mapping out every detail, connecting events with obsessive care. Their presence provided both motivation and moral imperative, reminding investigators that beyond the evidence lay the human dimension, the grief, the questions, the relentless need for closure that no analysis could replace. Friends and extended family contributed as well, recounting minor interactions, overlooked details, and fleeting moments that, under scrutiny, revealed patterns previously unconsidered. Each memory, each recollection became part of the growing framework of investigation. Patterns began to crystallize. The hooded figure and white van, recurring in witness statements, suggested a methodical process: surveillance, observation, anticipation. Investigators hypothesized a perpetrator familiar with Emily's routines, someone capable of blending seamlessly into daily life while orchestrating events with precision. Minor physical traces, scuff marks, displaced objects, subtle environmental anomalies took on newfound significance, revealing evidence of deliberate planning. The night of Emily's disappearance began to take shape, reconstructed through a combination of human memory, forensic data, and technological tools, forming a sequence that, while incomplete, suggested deliberate intent and calculated movement. Geographic profiling revealed clusters of activity, areas where the hooded figure might have loitered, potential escape routes, and locations for concealment. Timelines were cross-referenced, analyzed, and re-evaluated, each iteration offering incremental clarity. Investigators retraced Emily's final steps, noting sightlines, distances, and environmental conditions, imagining where an observer could remain unnoticed, calculating the probability of detection, and considering every potential deviation from routine. The reconstruction became a living exercise in deduction, an intricate dance between known facts and plausible inference, guiding detectives closer to a resolution that had eluded them for over 15 years. Community contributions proved invaluable. Residents recalled seemingly trivial details: a van parked at unusual hours, a stranger lingering in corners, a dog barking at an empty street. High school friends remembered fleeting remarks from Emily, concerns about being followed, encounters with strangers, and unusual incidents dismissed at the time. These observations, woven together, formed a lattice of memory that complemented the scientific and analytical aspects of the investigation. The town, intentionally or not, had become an active participant, its collective memory a repository of clues long dormant, now emerging as vital components in the pursuit of truth. Psychological profiling intensified. Experts examined behavior patterns, linguistic idiosyncrasies, and environmental context, constructing a model of the potential perpetrator. Analysis of anonymous letters, tip calls, and minor inconsistencies in witness reports suggested a single author behind multiple interactions, someone manipulating perception, maintaining control over the narrative, and guiding investigators subtly while remaining hidden. The profile emphasized patience, intelligence, and local knowledge, painting a chilling picture of someone capable of sustaining secrecy over years, observing without detection, and acting with precision. By 2015, the investigation had entered a critical phase. Forensic, geographic, and behavioral data converged toward specific locations, individuals, and patterns. Investigators pursued leads with renewed focus, each small discovery adding weight to the overarching narrative. The white van, repeatedly reported, was cross-referenced with vehicle registration databases, repair shop records, and surveillance footage from surrounding counties. The hooded figure, once a fleeting shadow, now became a central element, a potential linchpin connecting witness observations, forensic evidence, and reconstructed timelines. Emily's family continued to provide indispensable insight. Ann Harper meticulously recounted routines, social interactions, and environmental details from years prior. Michael Harper organized information, cross-referencing notes, maps, and interviews to identify inconsistencies or potential leads. Their dedication ensured that no detail was dismissed, no fragment of memory overlooked. Friends and community members contributed as well, offering forgotten anecdotes, photographs, and observations that, collectively, began to illuminate aspects of the night previously obscured. The investigation's intensity affected the town. Lancaster existed in a heightened state of awareness. Parents watched their children closely, neighbors noticed every unusual movement, and the streets themselves seemed to hum with anticipation and tension. Reports of suspicious vehicles, lingering strangers, and odd sounds were treated seriously, feeding into the growing body of information. The town's collective vigilance, combined with investigative diligence, created an environment in which even the smallest anomaly could be recognized and acted upon. Technological advancements continued to drive progress. DNA analysis, fiber comparison, and digital enhancement of surveillance footage revealed details that were invisible during initial investigations. Patterns emerged from previously indecipherable evidence, corroborating witness accounts and providing new directions for inquiry. Investigators combined traditional methods with modern tools, creating a multifaceted approach that bridged gaps caused by the passage of time. Each breakthrough, no matter how minor, carried the potential to unlock years of uncertainty. Psychological insight informed strategy. Behavioral patterns suggested that the perpetrator operated with patience, deliberate planning, and adaptability. Investigators considered motives, opportunities, and environmental factors, analyzing patterns across space and time. The combination of forensic evidence, witness recollection, and behavioral analysis provided a coherent framework for pursuing leads previously deemed too tenuous or speculative. The meticulous reconstruction of events, timelines, and movements brought clarity to a case long clouded by uncertainty. By 2016, investigators had assembled a comprehensive framework connecting witness testimony, forensic data, behavioral analysis, and community memory. Each component, once isolated, now contributed to a larger, coherent narrative. The white van, hooded figure, and minor environmental anomalies were linked within this framework, revealing probable locations, sequences, and behaviors. The reconstruction suggested that Emily's disappearance, far from random, was the result of careful observation and planning, executed with precision and concealed with skill. The Harper family maintained their unwavering presence. Candlelight vigils continued, annual remembrances underscored by silence, grief, and hope. Friends and extended family provided additional insights, piecing together fragments of memory that added context to the investigative framework. Their dedication ensured the continuity of the search, preserving the human dimension of a case that, over nearly 2 decades, had become both a community legend and a personal tragedy. As 2017 approached, Lancaster's streets carried a palpable tension. Residents recalled past events with heightened attention, reporting unusual sightings or behaviors that might have been dismissed previously. Investigators integrated these observations, cross-referencing them with existing evidence and timelines. Each small detail, when considered in context, contributed to an evolving understanding of Emily Harper's disappearance, transforming what was once a stagnant cold case into a dynamic, multifaceted pursuit of truth. The convergence of forensic innovation, witness recollection, psychological profiling, and community engagement brought the case to a point where resolution seemed increasingly possible. Each investigation thread, meticulously documented, analyzed, and correlated, offered insight into a night that had long been cloaked in darkness. The town, the family, and the detectives were poised on the precipice of revelation, aware that the culmination of years of persistence, observation, and analysis might finally illuminate the truth long hidden in the shadows of Lancaster, Ohio. By 2018, Lancaster had become a town defined as much by memory as by geography. Every street, every alley, every empty lot seemed to echo with fragments of a night that had refused to fade from collective consciousness. Emily Harper's disappearance remained a wound, raw yet muted beneath the surface of daily life. Investigators, a dedicated blend of long-tenured detectives and new recruits, approached the case with a combination of experience, innovation, and relentless determination. Each file was scrutinized, each witness re-interviewed, and every environmental clue re-evaluated with the benefit of nearly 2 decades of hindsight. A map of probable locations, movements, and surveillance points stretched across the office walls, annotated with post-it notes, timelines, and photographs, forming a labyrinth of inquiry as complex as it was fragile. Witness testimony continued to provide critical insights. A local jogger recalled a van parked unusually long near Emily's last known route, the engine off, no driver visible, yet the air heavy with anticipation, as though the night itself had been waiting for something. Another resident remembered a fleeting silhouette in the distance, indistinct yet strangely deliberate in its positioning. These observations, minor and fleeting at the time, gained significance when re-examined against newly enhanced surveillance footage, physical evidence, and reconstructed timelines. Investigators combined these fragments into a mosaic of potential causality, each piece offering a glimmer of clarity in a case shrouded for nearly 20 years. Forensic breakthroughs accelerated the investigation. Hair samples, long thought inconclusive, revealed partial genetic markers when analyzed with advanced DNA phenotyping. Fibers recovered from Emily's personal belongings, once dismissed as commonplace, were now linked to materials traced through regional suppliers, narrowing the pool of potential sources. Partial fingerprints, enhanced digitally, suggested previous contact with individuals within the community, a revelation that narrowed investigative focus. The lab work, painstaking and exacting, produced incremental but significant gains, each discovery feeding into a growing confidence that resolution was achievable. Emily's family remained central to the pursuit of answers. Ann Harper walked familiar streets, retracing steps with precision, searching for overlooked anomalies. Michael Harper coordinated with detectives, analyzing notes, maps, and timelines, relentlessly seeking patterns in what had once seemed random. Their vigilance ensured that no detail was dismissed, that memory remained active and accurate, and that the human dimension of the case, grief, love, hope, remained inseparable from the pursuit of justice. Friends, extended family, and former classmates contributed observations and recollections that expanded the investigative net, providing context, nuance, and verification to existing data. Patterns began to take shape. Subtle, yet persistent, the white van, recurring in multiple independent accounts, suggested deliberate surveillance and patient planning. The hooded figure, previously a shadowy apparition, now emerged in witness recollections as a central presence, appearing strategically along Emily's route at specific intervals. Investigators hypothesized a calculated, organized perpetrator, someone familiar with Emily's routines, capable of executing an abduction with minimal evidence left behind. Minor details, a scuff mark on a curb, a misplaced item, a fleeting light reflection, gained significance in the context of this reconstructed narrative, illuminating aspects of the night long obscured. Geographic and temporal profiling refined investigative strategy. Analysts mapped probable locations, escape routes, and surveillance points, overlaying witness observations with forensic evidence. Timelines were meticulously constructed, recalibrated, and cross-referenced against new and old data. Each iteration revealed subtle inconsistencies, likely deliberate actions taken by the perpetrator to obscure their movements, and every refinement provided actionable intelligence. Investigators retraced Emily's final steps, considering sightlines, distances, and environmental conditions, imagining how a perpetrator might have observed, approached, and executed their plan without detection. Community memory remained a crucial component. Residents recalled unusual occurrences that had been dismissed at the time. A van parked oddly near a school parking lot, a figure lingering outside a diner, footsteps in an alley that seemed too purposeful. Former friends remembered conversations about being followed or noticed, concerns Emily had mentioned casually but had not elaborated on. Each recollection, integrated into investigative frameworks, contributed to a composite image of the night's events. The town itself, unwittingly, had become an archive of memory, each individual an inadvertent witness whose observations, when combined, formed a lattice of insight impossible to replicate by evidence alone. Psychological profiling guided investigative focus. Experts analyzed behaviors, communication patterns, and environmental factors to build a profile of a patient, intelligent, and organized perpetrator. Anonymous tips, letters, and sporadic calls were re-examined linguistically, revealing consistent patterns in syntax, timing, and phrasing that suggested a single individual manipulating perception, controlling the flow of information, and maintaining anonymity. The calculated nature of these communications provided insight into motive, opportunity, and methodology, refining investigative hypotheses and guiding the search for actionable leads. By 2019, the cold case investigation had evolved into a multifaceted operation, integrating forensic innovation, community memory, behavioral analysis, and geographic profiling. Each data point, whether physical, testimonial, or circumstantial, was cataloged and analyzed with precision. Investigators constructed a dynamic timeline, overlaid with witness statements, environmental cues, and technological evidence, producing a coherent, though incomplete, reconstruction of events. Patterns emerged that suggested the perpetrator had operated with deliberate planning, exploiting environmental factors and community routines to remain unseen, patient, and methodical. The Harper family's involvement intensified. Ann Harper meticulously reviewed every interview transcript, cross-referenced notes, and tracked timelines with painstaking care. Michael Harper continued to coordinate with investigators, identifying discrepancies, pursuing minor leads, and maintaining the integrity of memory against the distortions of time. Friends and former classmates added context, recollections of fleeting interactions, and personal anecdotes that illuminated aspects of Emily's life and behavior, forming a richer understanding of her routines, habits, and interactions in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Investigators focused increasingly on the convergence of patterns. The white van sightings, the hooded figure, and environmental anomalies were mapped and cross-referenced, revealing probable points of surveillance, approach, and escape. Minor details previously overlooked, scratches on pavement, displaced objects, faint impressions, were reevaluated under new analytic paradigms, providing insight into movement patterns and behavioral intent. The investigation became a meticulous reconstruction of possibility, a synthesis of memory, data, and inference, all converging toward the elusive truth that had eluded Lancaster for nearly 20 years. Community engagement remained critical. Residents revisited past experiences, recalling details under renewed scrutiny: an unusual vehicle near Emily's school, a fleeting figure near the diner, unexplained sounds or movements in the neighborhood. These contributions, cataloged and integrated into investigative frameworks, amplified the scope and precision of inquiry. The town's collective memory had become a living database, its observations forming a distributed intelligence that complemented traditional investigative methods. As 2020 approached, investigators were on the cusp of major breakthroughs. Forensic advancements, witness recollections, behavioral analysis, and geographic profiling had coalesced into actionable leads. The reconstruction of Emily Harper's last known movements, combined with environmental and circumstantial evidence, suggested potential locations of abduction, patterns of observation, and behavioral traits of a perpetrator capable of maintaining anonymity for decades. The cold case, once stagnant and opaque, had transformed into a dynamic, evolving pursuit, its resolution within sight, yet still wrapped in the tension of uncertainty, anticipation, and the haunting presence of 2 decades of unresolved questions. The streets of Lancaster, silent under the winter sky, bore witness to the passage of time, yet in their stillness the echoes of Emily's absence persisted. The diner where she worked, empty but for flickering lights. The sidewalks she once walked, now patrolled by investigators tracing invisible patterns. The community that had grown cautious, vigilant, and perceptive over 20 years. Every detail mattered, every memory mattered, every observation, no matter how small or delayed, carried the potential to unlock truths hidden beneath layers of time, fear, and meticulous concealment. The Harper family continued to serve as the emotional core of the investigation. Candlelight vigils, community outreach, interviews, and persistent engagement ensured that Emily Harper's story remained alive in public consciousness, a human heartbeat behind the forensic and analytic layers of the investigation. Friends, neighbors, and extended family contributed recollections that enriched the understanding of Emily's life, her routines, and the context surrounding her disappearance. This living memory, combined with modern investigative methods, created a synergy between human observation and scientific precision, building a framework capable of piercing decades of uncertainty. By mid-2020, the cold case had evolved into an intricate tapestry of forensic, behavioral, testimonial, and environmental data. Investigators constructed probabilistic models of movement, timing, and observation, integrating each new discovery into the growing understanding of Emily Harper's last hours. Minor details, a van parked at a specific time, a shadow in a window, an unclaimed package, were reevaluated in the context of the reconstructed timeline. Patterns began to converge, pointing toward possibilities previously unconsidered, offering tangible paths for investigative follow-up and instilling a cautious optimism among detectives, family, and the community alike. The shadow of 1999 loomed over Lancaster, yet within that shadow, the outlines of truth began to emerge. Each step, each discovery, each memory contributed to the slow, deliberate unraveling of a case that had long defied closure. The town, the family, and the investigators collectively waited, poised on the edge of revelation, aware that decades of patience, persistence, and vigilance might finally culminate in the illumination of a night shrouded in darkness and in the exposure of the truth behind Emily Harper's disappearance. The year was 2021, and Lancaster had aged under the weight of memory, its streets quieter but more watchful, every resident carrying fragments of a story that refused to fade. Emily Harper's absence remained a palpable presence, etched into the town's consciousness like a scar. Cold case detectives, experienced and new, approached the investigation with renewed focus. Technological advances, combined with decades of accumulated insight, provided tools that were once unimaginable. Surveillance enhancement, forensic reanalysis, geographic profiling, and witness recollection coalesced into a web of investigation meticulously designed to illuminate the night Emily vanished. The office walls, covered in maps, photographs, timelines, and colored pins, formed a living map of inquiry, a visual heartbeat of persistent pursuit. Witnesses continued to provide critical insights, their recollections filtered through memory yet sharpened by reflection. A neighbor recalled the white van parked unusually long near Emily's last known path, its presence unnerving but previously unnoticed. Another remembered a fleeting silhouette, hooded, purposeful, appearing and disappearing in the dim light of evening. When these accounts were juxtaposed against enhanced surveillance footage, partial forensic results, and reconstructed timelines, a chilling consistency emerged. Patterns that had been indistinct or dismissed became threads of narrative, suggesting deliberate observation, patient planning, and execution. Forensic advancements were decisive. Hair samples, fibers, and partial fingerprints, once inconclusive, now revealed patterns with striking potential. DNA phenotyping provided glimpses into the perpetrator's characteristics, narrowing possibilities. Fibers traced to regional sources, combined with other physical evidence, suggested connections previously undetectable. Investigators layered these findings atop reconstructed timelines and geographic patterns, building a lattice of information that gave shape to a night long shrouded in uncertainty. Every minor detail became significant. A scuff mark on the pavement, a displaced object near the diner, a faint reflection in a window. Emily's family remained central, human anchors amidst the analytic machinery of investigation. Anne Harper walked familiar streets nightly, retracing steps, scanning for anything unusual, while Michael Harper meticulously cross-referenced timelines, reports, and witness recollections. Their vigilance ensured that memory remained active, accurate, and nuanced, providing a depth to the investigation that technology alone could not capture. Friends and extended family contributed recollections, anecdotes, and photographs, weaving human context into the forensic and analytic framework. Together, they created a bridge between what had been observed, what had been recorded, and what had been forgotten. Patterns began to solidify. The recurring sightings of the white van and the hooded figure suggested deliberate, methodical surveillance. Investigators hypothesized a perpetrator with intimate knowledge of Emily's routines, capable of acting with precision and patience. Environmental anomalies previously dismissed gained weight. Scuffed pavement, misplaced personal items, subtle disturbances that collectively hinted at careful orchestration. The night of Emily's disappearance slowly reconstructed itself, each observation, each lead, each memory contributing to a sequence that revealed intent, opportunity, and methodical planning. Geographic and temporal analysis refined investigative strategy. Timelines were mapped against witness statements, forensic evidence, and environmental observations. Probable points of surveillance, approach, and escape were identified. Investigators retraced Emily's final steps with painstaking precision, noting sightlines, distances, and possible observation points. Each calculation provided insight into the perpetrator's behavior, revealing deliberate actions designed to minimize detection and maximize control. Minor inconsistencies, once overlooked, now offered critical clues about movements and intent. Community memory played an increasingly vital role. Residents recalled anomalies long ignored, vehicles parked at odd hours, figures lingering near familiar locations, and sounds or movements once dismissed as ordinary. Former classmates remembered fleeting remarks from Emily, hints of discomfort and concern, conversations about being observed that at the time seemed innocuous. Each recollection, cross-referenced with others, formed a composite map of behavior and movement, a network of observation that had persisted unnoticed for years. The town itself had become a living witness, its collective memory a silent archive aiding investigators in reconstructing a night long hidden in shadows. Psychological profiling guided the refinement of suspects and potential behavior patterns. Experts analyzed linguistic traits in anonymous communications, repeated call patterns, and behavioral inconsistencies to build a profile of the perpetrator. Observers concluded that the individual had orchestrated interactions with investigators, manipulating perception and maintaining anonymity while retaining control of the narrative. Calculated patience, adaptability, and familiarity with investigative methods suggested a perpetrator capable of long-term concealment, someone who had operated within the town's fabric unnoticed. By 2022, the investigation had entered a critical stage. Witness accounts, forensic evidence, technological analysis, and behavioral profiles converged toward specific leads. The white van, recurring across multiple independent reports, was traced through vehicle databases, repair records, and sightings in adjacent counties. The hooded figure, previously a spectral presence in witness memory, became a central piece of the puzzle. Environmental cues, scuff marks, displaced objects, tire impressions were reevaluated using enhanced techniques, revealing patterns consistent with deliberate and calculated actions. The investigative framework was coalescing, turning disparate fragments into a coherent picture of the night Emily vanished. Emily's family's involvement intensified. Candlelight vigils continued, marking anniversaries with somber remembrance and renewed vigilance. Friends and former classmates offered additional observations, minor interactions, and personal anecdotes that illuminated routines and behaviors from weeks prior to Emily's disappearance. Every detail was cross-referenced with forensic evidence and witness recollections, enriching the investigative model. The family's persistence ensured that memory remained active, accessible, and accurate, providing a critical human dimension alongside analytic rigor. Investigators focused increasingly on the convergence of patterns. The white van sightings, hooded figure appearances, and environmental anomalies were mapped and cross-referenced with timelines and forensic data. Each observation was considered in context, revealing probable locations of abduction, points of observation, and potential behaviors of the perpetrator. The reconstruction was meticulous, accounting for minute details, the timing of streetlights, pedestrian movement, and vehicle traffic. The synthesis of human memory, forensic analysis, and behavioral inference provided a powerful framework for understanding events that had remained opaque for more than 2 decades. Community engagement remained crucial. Residents contributed observations, photographs, and memories, forming a distributed intelligence that augmented traditional investigative methods. Each report, however delayed, was integrated into the analytical framework, providing additional context and validation. Patterns emerged, revealing correlations between seemingly isolated incidents, guiding investigative focus toward areas and individuals of interest. The town's collective memory, once diffuse, now played an active role in clarifying the sequence of events and narrowing the range of possibilities. As 2023 approached, the investigation had evolved into a precise, multidimensional operation. Witness recollections, forensic breakthroughs, behavioral profiling, and geographic reconstruction had converged into a comprehensive model of Emily Harper's last known movements. Each detail, minor or major, was analyzed for significance, contributing to a broader understanding of events. Patterns suggested a deliberate and calculated abduction, executed with precision and concealed through methodical manipulation of time, environment, and perception. Investigators, guided by this synthesis, pursued leads with renewed intensity, each discovery narrowing the scope of uncertainty and bringing the case closer to resolution. Lancaster itself remained steeped in tension, a town living in the shadow of absence. Streets echoed with caution, residents watched more closely, and the familiar became fraught with potential significance. Every vehicle, every figure, every sound was filtered through the lens of suspicion and memory. The town had internalized the investigation, its collective consciousness an unspoken collaborator, preserving details, recalling anomalies, and providing context that enhanced the investigative framework. The streets, buildings, and community all played silent roles in a pursuit that spanned 24 years, waiting for the moment when the final pieces would align. The Harper family's vigilance continued to anchor the investigation in humanity. Candlelight vigils, interviews, and ongoing engagement ensured Emily's story remained vivid and persistent, a heartbeat behind the scientific and analytic layers of inquiry. Friends and extended family contributed recollections, photographs, and observations that contextualized behavior, routines, and interactions, reinforcing the investigative model with nuance, depth, and perspective. Human memory, meticulously curated and analyzed, complemented technological precision, forming a synergy capable of revealing what had remained hidden for more than 2 decades. By mid-2023, the threads of evidence, witness testimony, forensic data, behavioral analysis, and environmental reconstruction began to converge into a tangible framework. Investigators identified probable sequences, locations, and behaviors, revealing patterns consistent with deliberate surveillance, planning, and execution. Minor details, long overlooked, gained new significance, providing insight into both the perpetrator's methods and the circumstances surrounding Emily's disappearance. The cold case, once stagnant, had evolved into an active pursuit of truth, poised on the edge of revelation, its resolution tantalizingly within reach, yet still wrapped in tension, uncertainty, and the persistent shadow of 2 decades of mystery. By 2024, Lancaster had transformed into a town still shaped by absence, each street, park, and corner haunted by memory, each resident carrying fragments of a story that refused to fade. Emily Harper's disappearance, now 25 years old, lingered like a persistent shadow, shaping perceptions, behavior, and the collective consciousness of a community. Cold case investigators, seasoned by decades of experience and armed with modern technology, approached the case with renewed urgency. Every lead, no matter how minor, was re-examined. Every piece of evidence previously dismissed was subjected to the scrutiny of 21st century forensic science. Surveillance footage, once grainy and inconclusive, was enhanced digitally, revealing faint shapes, movements, and patterns invisible during initial analysis. Witness testimony remained vital. A retired neighbor recalled the white van parked for hours near Emily's route, engine silent, presence deliberate. Another remembered a hooded figure moving with purpose along the same path, disappearing into shadows moments later. These recollections, though separated by years, formed a consistency that suggested calculated observation. Analysts overlaid these statements with environmental cues, streetlight timing, vehicle patterns, pedestrian movement, to reconstruct a night long obscured by time. Every minor observation was treated as a potential keystone, contributing to the evolving narrative of deliberate planning and concealment. Forensic innovation accelerated breakthroughs. Hair samples, long stored and considered inconclusive, revealed partial genetic markers through advanced DNA phenotyping. Fibers recovered from Emily's clothing and personal items were cross-referenced with regional suppliers and potential sources, narrowing avenues of investigation. Partial fingerprints, enhanced and digitized, suggested prior contact with individuals within the community. Each finding, layered upon reconstructed timelines and geographic analysis, brought clarity to sequences of events that had previously been opaque. Scuff marks, displaced items, tire impressions, once minor anomalies, were now crucial indicators, guiding investigators through the labyrinth of uncertainty. Emily's family remained central to the ongoing investigation. Ann Harper continued to walk familiar streets, retracing Emily's last known steps, scanning shadows, seeking overlooked anomalies. Michael Harper meticulously coordinated with investigators, cross-referencing evidence, verifying timelines, and analyzing witness statements. Their persistence ensured that memory remained reliable and nuanced, providing human insight alongside forensic precision. Friends and extended family contributed recollections, photographs, and observations, offering context to behaviors, routines, and minor incidents that, in aggregate, revealed previously obscured patterns. Emerging patterns began to take shape. The white van, recurring in multiple accounts, suggested deliberate patient surveillance. The hooded figure, once a fleeting presence, now appeared repeatedly in witness recollections, reinforcing theories of intentional observation and orchestration. Environmental anomalies, scuff marks, displaced objects, faint impressions, revealed deliberate, methodical planning. Investigators began to reconstruct Emily's final hours with increasing precision, noting likely paths, observation points, and potential abduction sites. Each minor detail contributed to a growing, coherent model of behavior and sequence, offering insight into the deliberate and calculated nature of the crime. Geographic and temporal profiling refined the reconstruction further. Timelines were meticulously cross-referenced with witness accounts, forensic evidence, and environmental observations. Probable points of surveillance, approach, and escape were mapped with exacting care. Investigators retraced Emily's steps, calculating sight lines, distances, and visibility conditions. Every decision the perpetrator might have made, where to linger, when to move, how to avoid detection, was analyzed, each scenario tested against known facts and reconstructed timelines. The cold case investigation had evolved into a precise, methodical analysis of space, time, and human behavior. Community memory remained indispensable. Residents provided long-forgotten details: an unregistered vehicle seen near Emily's school, a fleeting figure near the diner, a sound or movement dismissed at the time as ordinary. Former classmates recalled casual conversations Emily had about feeling observed, encounters with strangers, and subtle expressions of discomfort. Each recollection, when integrated with forensic data and behavioral analysis, contributed to a growing understanding of events, a lattice of human memory that amplified and contextualized empirical findings. The town itself, unintentionally, became an active participant, its collective memory preserving details inaccessible through technology alone. Psychological profiling informed investigative strategy. Experts analyzed anonymous letters, sporadic calls, and behavioral patterns, constructing a profile of a patient, intelligent, and organized perpetrator. Linguistic patterns, timing of communications, and repeated motifs suggested a single individual controlling perception, manipulating information, and maintaining anonymity. The calculated patience and methodical planning implied a perpetrator capable of operating undetected within the community for decades, someone familiar with investigative practices and adept at avoiding detection while influencing the flow of information. By mid-2024, investigators had reached a critical juncture. Witness statements, forensic data, geographic reconstruction, and behavioral analysis converged toward specific leads, individuals, and probable locations. The white van sightings, consistent across independent reports, were cross-referenced with vehicle records, maintenance logs, and sightings in surrounding counties. The hooded figure, previously an indistinct memory,